gathering of luminaries from the African continent who are enacting a very particular kind of reading today. Today is the birthday of Nelson Mandela, and it is the inaugural event in a series created by PEN South Africa called Writing in Troubled Times. Today, there's a theme I'd like to introduce of being close, of being neighbors despite distance and time zones. Today, the first of our readers is Rustum Kozain, who is 17 hours far from me in time and in distance, but he is also close to me. For the person whose birthday we are marking today was in exactly the same time zone as me, but he was 27 years away from me. So the idea of nearness and closeness is particularly malleable and particularly important. And I say that because the idea of neighborhood in relation to Gaza is something that I grew up with, actually, where I lived in Athlone, just outside of Cape Town, in South Africa. Palestine was in our neighborhood. Palestine was in the marches. Palestine was in the posters on the street poles. Palestine was in the graffiti. It was in the churches. It was in the mosques. Palestinians were, in other words, were our neighbors. They were close to us. And I greet our neighbors, especially you in Gaza and you in the West Bank. Before that cruel division, you were close to us. And your struggle is our struggle, because when we ourselves were going through our hard times, you were close to us in solidarity. And so in these pitiless times, we are definitely close to you. I will read a piece by the Palestinian writer Mahmoud al-Shair, who is from Rafah, but whose house, which he was still in the process of building, was destroyed, along with 90% of his city. That house is only a memory, but I know that house. And I know it's almost lived in rooms from Mahmoud's writing. And I can tell you that reading his words, I can tell that they are giving him breath, even as the missiles and even as death are falling around him. So when I read his words, when people all over the world read his words, we hear him breathing and we feel him close. And I want us to think about what words can do. I was lucky enough just recently to meet Mahmoud by email, thanks to a former president of PEN South Africa. And this is what he wrote in response to hearing that Gaza is our neighborhood. Palestinians are our neighbors. He said, "I read your words slowly as one reads a letter from a beloved neighbor, because indeed, despite the distance, I feel near. What you shared about Palestine being present in your streets, in the graffiti, in the mosques and the marches, this is the kind of solidarity that keeps us breathing when everything around us pushes us towards despair. It is an honor to know that my words will be read aloud during this gathering, that my voice might reach others. Please choose whatever piece speaks to the moment." And he himself is reaching us, is with us today in the audience. So this is what words can do, and this is what this gathering of writers and their words will do. And I will end by reading an entry from Mahmoud, who shares almost every day something from what it is like to live inside a genocide. And this is what he has written on June 27th. "The sounds from the east have gone silent. The military operation has obliterated the area where our home once stood. The army flattened every house, every road, every piece of infrastructure, every tree, turning the place into an absolute void. Military convoys now pass through that absence, where life has been split in two, one part seen by soldiers from behind the glass of their armored vehicles, and the other lingering only in the memory of the person writing these words. The sounds from the east have gone silent. My body is on the shore, my soul exhausted from searching for the pleasures of an ordinary life. I search for food and find none. I search for water and it's gone. Each passing day, I struggle more and more to feel my own humanity. The sounds from the east have gone silent. In the east, I left my life, buried under the rubble of Rafah. No sound, no signal, just silence and the constant ringing in my ears. The sounds from the east have gone silent, along with my identity, the landmarks of my story, my soul, my community, my sidewalks, the shortcuts on maps, the alleyways, the cemeteries. The sounds from the east have gone silent. No witnesses remain, no final chance to stand before the rubble. Only the dead remain here. From Mahmoud in Mawasi Khan Yunis, Gaza. And then he writes also this: I want peace now, a peace that does not bargain with my memory, a peace that does not require my death. I want to be alive, not a hero, not a breaking news headline. I want to be myself, a father, a husband, a writer, a human being who sees his shadow on the ground and smiles in the fullest sense of the word. On July 14th. And then on July 17th, he said, I see my shadow still on the ground, so I know I'm still alive. I think I'm following the shadows of Rafah, and I'm following them through words, which can make Rafah, can make Gaza as close as that, as close as breath, as close as a shadow. Because our words can refuse the justification we are seeing all around us. And we can refuse the pitiless death that is being waged on Gaza and being meted out in the West Bank. And we can claim something else, something like neighborliness and all of the responsibilities that brings. So I leave you with these words and with a welcome to all of us to ask how close Gaza is to us. And now it is my unbelievable honor to share with you this gathering of writers from the African continent, Rustum Kozain, Coetzee, Zukiswa Wanner, Mishka Hoosen, Masande Ntshanga, Zubeida Jaffer, Abdulrazak Gurnah. Thank you, dearest and most beloved friends, for bringing your closeness to this reading. If you wish to see their incredible biographies, please visit the PEN South Africa website and join us in the future for further events in this series of Writing in Troubled Times. And now I hand over to Rustum Kozain.
Thank you, Gabeba. I will read two short pieces, two short poems. The first poem was written in 2014 during the then war on Gaza, and was published in a small independent anthology edited by Retabile Masilo and Matthew Staunton, the anthology entitled For the Children of Gaza. The poem is called The Wind in the Morning. The man wakes from dream to nightmare, his night-aged knees buckling over rubble outside when he emerges from the black mouth of his house. Its burnt shell, a meager shelter from the wind, now tugging at a loose something, and the blight it brings like a scythe through the valleys. Let the sun rise if it must. Let it burn through the wind. Let it dry them, eventual white and broken as the earth, his neighbors, the two lovers, charred in copulation on the blackened bed, as if they unleashed the starbursts of the bombs, that burning out their love. What's left are the wind-worn harvests, the neighbors' ache, friends' unanswered calls, a mother who cries, who wanders until death among the millions of the unconsoled. We who also wake, but turn away, cowed, unshamed, we whisper only to each other of the murdered and the maimed. Single, multiple, mass, the killing fields, the index of our regress, back from Auschwitz-Birkenau. The next poem is a recent poem. It's called The Greatest Love. It takes as an epigraph a verse from a popular song called The Greatest Love of All, written by Michael Wasser and Linda Creed, and is sung in my memory by George Benson, but also, of course, popularized years after that by Whitney Houston. The Greatest Love. The children have children. They have no ankles. The children, they have no toes. The children have no arms. The children have no hands, no elbows. How do they wash their hands when they must come and eat? The children lie under the rubble without their fingers. Under the collapsed buildings, the children, they have no fingernails. No fingernails that need cleaning, need clipping. The children, they have no shoulders, they have no shoulder blades. The children have no knees, no shins, nowhere to put some lotion. No lotion on their cheeks peeled open. The children's milk teeth glisten through the big holes in their cheeks. The children have their spleens burst open. The children's skulls are cracked, torn apart, bone blown open. The children have no eyes. The children are torn apart, small torsos shorn from their waists and legs. The small torsos lies here. The legs without feet lie meters over there. The children's brains lie in the open, crusted with sand, covered in flies. The flies land on the children's drying brains. The children are a stain of blood, small bodies smudged in sand and tar by something heavy, what we cannot say. The children, each and every one, have holes through the heart, through the head. We cannot say by what, by whom, we cannot, do not speak. It is a mystery that deepens every day, every week. Every month, the children die. We pray to all our gods, let the children go. We think of them, we cannot think of them, the children. The children look at us and say nothing. The children do not go forth, nor do they come back. They are dead. They are silent. They are dead, the children. Thank you.
See here. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gabeba, I sent you a video recording just in case a disaster of this kind occurred. So let me just say a few words and then would you play the recording?
Yes, thank you.
It's a reading from Mahmoud Darwish from a 1973 book called Journal of an Ordinary Grief. And it reflects on the occupation of Gaza in the late 1960s after the 67 war, but is in no sense out of date. So let's go to Darwish.
Thank you, John.
You're reading from the work of the Palestinian writer Mahmoud Darwish from his Journal of an Elementary Grief, published in 1973. Gaza is an island. Every time she erupts, and she is always erupting, she lacerates the face of the enemy, breaks up his dreams, and obstructs his contentment. Time in Gaza is something else. Time in Gaza is not a neutral element. Gaza does not propel people to cool contemplation. Rather, she propels them to erupt and collide with the truth. Time there does not lead children directly from childhood to old age, but it does make men of them upon the first encounter with the enemy. Values in Gaza are different. The only values that an occupied person can espouse are those of resistance to occupation. Familiarity with these noble and hard values has become a need in Gaza. Her people did not acquire this need from books or from brief academic courses or from trumpets blaring propaganda or from patriotic songs. Only from experience did Gaza learn these values. Gaza does not show off her weapons, her revolutionary zeal, or her balance sheet. She offers her bitter flesh, follows her own will, and pours out her blood. Gaza has not mastered the orator's art. Gaza does not have a throat. The pores of her skin speak in sweat, blood, and fire. As a result, the enemy hates her enough to kill, is afraid enough to commit crimes, and tries to sink her in the sea, in the desert, or in blood. Therefore, her friends and relations love her with a feeling of shame that touches on jealousy, or even fear sometimes, because Gaza is the savage lesson and radiant model for enemies and friends alike. Gaza is not the most beautiful of cities. Her coast is not more blue than those of other Arab cities. Her oranges are not the best in the Mediterranean. Gaza is not the richest of cities. And Gaza is not the most polished of cities or the largest. But she is equivalent to the history of a nation because she is the most repulsive among us in the eyes of the enemy. The poorest, the most desperate, and the most ferocious. Because she is a nightmare. Because she is oranges that explode, women without a childhood, aged men without an old age, and women without desire. Because she is all that, she is the most beautiful among us, the purest, the richest, and most worthy of love. We are unfair to her when we search for her poems. Let us not disfigure the beauty of Gaza. The most beautiful thing in her is that she is free of poetry. It would be unfair to turn Gaza into a legend because we will end up hating her when we discover she is nothing more than a small, poor city that resists. Gaza will not come to us. Gaza will not liberate us. Gaza does not have horses or jet fighters or magic wands or officers in capitals. Gaza frees herself of our attributes, our language, and of her conquerors all at once. And when we run into her once in a dream, she may not recognize us because she was born of fire while we were born of waiting and crying over our homes. The secret of Gaza is no mystery. Her masses are united in popular resistance. She knows what she wants to drive out the enemy. In Gaza, the relation between resistance and the masses is that of the flesh to the bone, and not that of the teacher to the student. In Gaza, resistance has not become a salary position. And in Gaza, resistance has not become an institution. She does not accept supervision from anyone, and she does not allow her destiny to hang on anyone's stamp or signature. It does not matter to her very much whether or not we know her name or recognize her image or oratorical skills. She does not believe she is photogenic or a media event. She does not make ready for the camera with a smile plastered on her face. That is not what she wants and not what we want. What is beautiful about Gaza is that our voices do not reach her. Nothing diverts her attention. Nothing turns her fist away from the face of the enemy. Nothing diverts her attention. She is dedicated to rejection, hunger and rejection, thirst and rejection, dispersion and rejection, torture and rejection, siege and rejection, death and rejection. The enemy may defeat Gaza. The stormy sea might overwhelm a small island. They might cut down all her trees. They might break her bones. They might plant their tanks in the bellies of her women and children, or they might toss her into the sand, into the sea, into blood. But Gaza will not repeat the lies. Gaza will not say yes to the conquerors, and she will continue to erupt. It is not death, and it is not suicide. It is Gaza's way of announcing she is worthy of life.
Thank you very much, John. And to explain to everybody that we have a technical difficulty and unfortunately aren't able to see a visual of John, but enormous thanks for being present and us hearing your breath. Thank you. And next we will have Mishka.
Thank you so much, Habiba. Cool. So I chose to read two poems by Palestinian writers because anything that I write will not come close to the lived experience of the people who are most affected by the war in Gaza. And so I would like to honor their voices by reading their work instead of my own. And the first poem that I chose to read today is by Omar Sakr, and it's called Every Day. Every day I say a prayer for Palestine, and every day a dog runs away with it, vanishing down an alley, tail wagging to benefit who knows which wretch. I tell myself it doesn't matter who receives the gift of my kindness. Such lovely lies we bestow upon ourselves. Sometimes I am the dog fleeing with a bastard's love clenched in my slavering jaw. Sometimes I am the one curled at the end of an alley, blessed by the unexpected warmth of a snuffling mouth telling me I am not forgotten. Every day I say a prayer for Palestine. The next poem that I'd like to read is by Hiba Abu Nada, translated by Huda Fakhreddin. And this is one of the last poems that Hiba Abu Nada wrote before she was martyred in an Israeli raid on her home on October the 20th, 2023. She was 32 years old. I grant you refuge. 1. I grant you refuge in invocation and prayer. I bless the neighborhood and the minaret to guard them from the rocket, from the moment it is a general's command until it becomes a raid. I grant you and the little ones refuge the little ones who change the rocket's course before it lands with their smiles. 2. I grant you and the little ones refuge, the little ones now asleep like chicks in a nest. They don't walk in their sleep toward dreams. They know death lurks outside the house. Their mother's tears are now doves following them, trailing behind every coffin. 3. I grant the father refuge, the little one's father who holds the house upright when it tilts after the bombs. He implores the moment of death, have mercy, spare me a little while. For their sake, I've learned to love my life. Grant them a death as beautiful as they are. 4. I grant you refuge from hurt and death, refuge in the glory of our siege, here in the belly of the whale. Our streets exalt God with every bomb. They pray for the mosques and the houses, and every time the bombing begins in the north, our supplications rise in the south. 5. I grant you refuge from hurt and suffering. With words of sacred scripture, I shield the oranges from the sting of phosphorus and the shades of cloud from the smog. I grant you refuge in knowing that the dust will clear, and they who fell in love and died together will one day laugh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mishka. And now we have Jolyn.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Gabeba, for having me. I'd written this poem in 2024, and since then, I've been thinking about, and I've been learning how to pray. And one of the most important things that I've learned from indigenous practices in my own country is to call upon the land and to call upon the people that has gone before us. And since then, I've also done research in finding out the rights, the birth rights and the death rights, that's taken away the dignity. It's the most sacred dignity to take away from a people. And I'll be reading one poem. O holy land, O strong city, between the river and the Mediterranean, Philistia Sea, I call upon the plain of Sharon, plain of Esdraelon, where the Kishon River breaks through the plain of Akko, hill and sea country of Galilee, to that of Samaria, to the highest peak of Mount Tabor, as at Jericho by the shore of the Dead Sea. The people of Gaza are eating grass. There is no ghee, honey, milk to wash the bodies of the deceased. O holy land, O strong city, between the river and the Mediterranean, Philistia Sea, I call upon the plains of Sharon, plain of Esdraelon, where the Kishon River breaks through the plain of Akko, hill and sea country of Galilee, to that of Samaria, to the highest peak of Mount Tabor, as at Jericho by the shore of the Dead Sea. O holy land, O strong city, mangled angel food and detonated NICUs, incinerated psalms, hunger breaking, eagles in prostration. Here is my poem, this burgeoning white water from the river to the sea, this ars poetica that recites, O holy land, O strong city, 500,000 years later, and still, this poem shouldn't be written. This poem should not be written. This poem shouldn't be written. This poem should not be written of war anymore. Still, O holy land, O strong city between the river and the Mediterranean, Philistia Sea, I call upon the plain of Sharon, plain of Esdraelon, where the Kishon River breaks through the plain of Akko Hill and sea country of Galilee, to that of Samaria, to the highest peak of Mount Tabor, as at Jericho by the shore of the Dead Sea. I call upon every single person to be the Dayat, bring sage and cumin to the rebirth of Gaza, and sing and shake towards you the trunk of the palm tree. It will drop upon you fresh, ripe dates. And rub the skin of Gaza with olive oil, salt and water. The embalmed bones bombed from their graves, and the warm war-eaten bodies like white untwisted sweets. O holy land, O strong city, still Gaza refused to sit with their backs towards the Kaaba in Mecca. 644 days since the first bomb felt like detonated mana grenades dropping from the sky. Gaza refuses to sit with their backs towards the Kaaba in Mecca. O holy land, O strong city, between the river and the Mediterranean, Philistia Sea, I call upon the plain of Sharon, plain of Esdraelon, where the Kishon River breaks through to the plain of Akko Hill and sea country of Galilee, to that of Samaria, to the highest peak of Mount Tabor, as at Jericho by the shore of the Dead Sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolyn. Masande, please. Unmute, please, Masande.
So I will be reading from a recently completed work. This poem is addressed to those who build the systems that shape our futures, governments, corporations, algorithms. It moves through trauma and memory from apartheid-era South Africa to speculative futures, where even our deaths are optimized for utility. I read it tonight for those in Gaza whose breath is still being blocked, whose lives are mediated by drones, walls, and software. I offer this not as a comparison, but as a gesture of global kinship and refusal. Dear developers, in the next century, I will no longer feel the length of my intestines, climbing up the cavern behind my sternum, touching my trachea, blocking my breath, and hardening like a maze of ice. I will no longer lose my breath inside a mall, inside a church, inside a school, inside the U-Bahn in Kreuzberg, the Tube in Piccadilly, the Gautrain in Marlborough, or an Uber in Blackheath. I will no longer look at myself in the mirror with apology, inside my mother's house, nor tilt my phone for selfies to prove to her that I'm eating enough. Nor will I hire an escort from Middleburg for 2 nights, compile her into a glitched poem of Python sprites, controlling her through Stack Overflow, scrubbing metadata from her phone, and fitting myself into an oligarch's soul. Dear developers, now that my brother's sober, he cleans the house each week, and I'm starting to age from learning that living is a technique I picked up as a child in the century before closed captions and large language models. In 1992, near the nuclear winter, on a farm outside Urbana, where hell became operational. From thumbs clotted red with dead carpenter ants, vinegar porridge, Afrocombs, blood in the morning, super contra, and police surveillance. From Unati lifting her church dress to show me her vulva inside a vacant security booth. From ancient bullet holes in a windowless coach house, silvered in a blanket of cobwebs inside a shuttered racecourse. From Sir, the president who died in sheep's clothing during a live broadcast, a golden pen stuck in his palm on a varnished parliament pew. Dear developers, where were you in the previous century when I fell in and out of love with half-liter petrol bombs, with pressed red shorts, armored trucks, VHS static, and stalks of grass as spears? In the previous century, when I fell in and out of love with writing, and the sincere knowledge that in the next century, I will fall in and out of love with this too. That I'll be owned by an ethical corporation, and this will happen before the age turns, not too far from now. And it'll be the perfect organization for me, with heat-sensitive name tags, self-healing elevators, and a waiting room that reeks of aloe and burnt hair. That I'll grow close to it and put it in charge of donating each part of me to everyone in need. That I'll ask it to harvest my organs, release my web history, and compost the husk, to plant me inside fertile soil, above a field of uranium, and finally make me useful to all. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Masande. Zuki, please. Zukiswa.
Hi everyone, sorry about that. I seem to be having a problem starting my video, Gabeba, but I am getting there.
Okay,
I promise.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, just when I almost got there, I undid myself. All right, here I am. I am reading from my brother, Haida Eid, who was a lecturer at Al-Aqsa, and he came to South Africa in December 2023. Haida Eid obtained his PhD from University of Johannesburg and is now an associate professor at University of Pretoria. It's called Gaza and Melancholy. In his memoir, Istanbul, Turkish Nobel laureate Orhan Pamuk devotes an entire chapter to the concept of melancholy and its relationship to the city he loved and grew up in. He addresses the centrality of melancholy in Istanbul culture, in poetry, music, and fine arts. The people of the ancient city, according to Pamuk, consider melancholy a badge of Turkish honor. Pamuk skillfully attempts to understand the intensity of this sadness by explaining the city's history after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. Significantly, this great melancholy, transformed from a spiritual concept into a rational state, is linked to daily life in Istanbul. The writer then discusses his own understanding of communal sadness in his city, not from a romantic Western perspective associated with individual isolation, loneliness, and nostalgia, but rather from what he calls the collective, dark mood of millions of people, the sadness of an entire city. In his opinion, it is a melancholy that connects the city's people to one another. So it's a melancholy that is different from 19th century Romanticism. Instead, it is a sadness that the city's residents see themselves in and collectively accept. Thus, the city itself becomes a tangible embodiment of melancholy in terms of memory and place. Here, I turn to Gaza and the collective melancholy that you can easily see in its streets, homes, schools, universities, destroyed cinemas, blue sea, sealed borders, and in the eyes of its women, men, and children. In this context, I'm not writing about the melancholy of the city, concentration camp, Bantustan. Rather, like Istanbul, Gazan sadness is that in which we see ourselves as a single entity, not as individuals, each possessing existential melancholy in the Saturn sense, but as an entity comprising the sadness of a city street. And like Istanbul, the city becomes a physical embodiment of this sadness, but one not tied to a vanished empire or a bygone glory. It is the sadness we see in the eyes of children who went to play soccer after school and saw the remains of their friends scattered on the field. In the empty boats of fishermen returning before sunrise, as they were not allowed to fish beyond 3 miles. In the eyes of a cancer patient who needed an injection of chemotherapy that was not available. In the screams of an elderly man who lost 28 members of his family, leaving only him to become the grandfather, father, mother, brother, and sister to his grandson, the sole survivor of the massacre. In the eyes of a father who was unable to provide a loaf of bread and a plate of time for his 4 daughters and his disabled wife. In the screams of a woman who carried her 2 children and ran hurriedly out of the house under a night sky illuminated by phosphorus bombs. In the wailing of a family whose home was destroyed on a harsh winter night. In the screams of a child who couldn't bear the cold in a tent provided by some relief committees. In the wasted dignity of a man at the gate of an international kitchen waiting for 2 loaves of bread to feed his 7 hungry children waiting for him in the house, room, in Jabalia camp. In the face of a doctor who knows his patient will die within 24 hours if he doesn't receive the necessary treatment, which won't arrive soon. In the cries of an infant dying of starvation after the milk in her mother's breast dried up and the necessary formula was unavailable. In the grief of the 12-year-old girl whose parents and 2 brothers were killed and whose legs were amputated. In the words of the little girl who prayed to God that her parents and siblings would not be killed before she died. In the cry of a boy for his mother who inhaled phosphorus for a prolonged period, causing her lungs to swell and die. In the eyes of a sheikh who went to pray Fajr in a mosque that was no longer a mosque. In the melody of a talented oud player who finds no one to listen to his music. In the voice of a singer who no longer remembers his last gig. In the eyes of children drawing a Merkava tank, an F-16 fighter jet, and a phosphorus bomb. So it's not romantic melancholy or existential questioning that you may see on the streets of Gaza. Rather, it's a unique condition that the people of Gaza have found a name for, one never used before in Arabic, not to describe the countryside of the Romantic poet William Wordsworth, the Algeria of Albert Camus, or the Paris of Jean-Paul Sartre. It's a condition that Gazans call fagadan, loss. This word is understood by the people of the Strip as a mixture of forgetfulness, oblivion, denial, disorientation, lack of focus, and wandering eyes, accompanied by a tremendous ability to transform great anxiety into an inspiring energy for a state of stubbornness and summit that pleases neither Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich, nor even the President of the United States and Arab leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Zukiswa. And now we will have Zubeida.
Thank you, Gabeba, for creating the closeness with all of us here today. It is perhaps more than we understand the crucial element that has to unfold if we are to draw strength from one another in this difficult time. I've chosen to read a piece from the new book by Shabir Banubai, South Africa's Sufi poet, prolific writer. This is, from what I understand, his 15th book, called Rivers Interrupted, published this year. It is a book of quiet reflections on life. Allow me to read an excerpt from the last letter in the book. Open quotes. This is a personal plea. As a friend, please do not become complicit or continue to be complicit in the Israeli genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, including through your silence. Last night, I had a dream. I was talking with a dear friend and told her, I feel so helpless, so ashamed to be a human being. Then woke up. What do you do when a nation state has crossed the line and has gone from not tolerating the existing of others to annihilating them in previously unimaginable ways? What if every attempt to describe the nightmare in words becomes an exercise in futility, and the words look at us with glazed eyes, not comprehending what they are meant to convey? Where do we turn to for support if emphasizing the inhumanity of Israelis towards the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank does not help? As we struggle to reverse these losses without losing our compassion, we should take shelter deep within the heart of God and remember, despite our grief, despite everything that indicates a nation so far astray from any semblance of humanity and desire to do what is right, except for the courageous and upright few, that we are all innately the light of God, even if, for now, Israelis have gone astray. One day, when their moral compass is restored to them and they are ashamed of who they have become, we'll have to find a way to reintegrate them as our siblings, as hard as that may be to contemplate now. But first, it is our turn to ask for forgiveness for the wrongs we have done or allowed to be done in our name, or the name of our God, by whatever name we call God. The wrongs we have done to our hearts, souls, minds, spirit, and humanity, that we have abused or allowed others to abuse, where we have been manipulated, bullied, and blinded, while an entire country and its people have been obliterated, or the stage set for their obliteration. Close quote. In contemplating Shabir's words, I have come to the insight that this does not mean we should assist or compromise with evil or fail to put it down where we have no power. or fail to put it down when we have the power. All those years when we worked for an end to apartheid in our own country, we did not know from one day to the next what awaited us. It means we have to be patient and humble, where we have no visible power to prevent evil, and to remember always that in our limited vision, we can never know with certainty that our actions or words truly have no power. Thank you.
Thank you, Zubeida, and my great honor to invite Abdulrazak Gurnah. So sorry, Abdulrazak, could you unmute?
Okay, I'm back now. Hello, everybody. It's very good to be part of this gathering and to hear so many voices speaking so eloquently about voicing their opinions and their sympathies and so on. I suppose in the end, what we're doing with this kind of event is to show solidarity, to show that we understand something, but we really don't understand that much. But we understand something of what's going on, and possibly also just to condemn the brutality of what is being done. Apparently, every night, if you have a television, and if you dare to put it on, what you see is further destruction of people, very deliberately and very one feels, in a very kind of organized and rational way. However, I'm going to read about a garden. This is from Paradise, the novel which I wrote not 2 days ago or 3 weeks ago, but many years ago. The mistress was full of smiles and welcome, her high-pitched voice rising and falling in sharp melodies which filled the room. She was eager to talk and told them of her arrival in the house when she came to live with her first husband. May God have mercy on him. Her husband was a man mature in years, perhaps 50 or so, and she was very nearly 15. He had lost his wife and infant son only a few months before through illness and other people's envy. This infant son was the only one of his children who had survived more than a few weeks. All the others had lived long enough to be named, and her husband remembered everyone. Even to the end of his days, he could not speak of his wife and children without tears. May God have mercy on all of them. The mistress had grown up in the town and knew about her husband's grief, which everyone considered did him credit. Despite his burdens, he was kind to her. Until in his last year or two, anyway, when his illness made him so irritable and difficult. That was how she came to live in this house and brought Mzee Hamdani with her, although he was not old then. It was he who built the garden, Mzee Hamdani. Not from nothing, of course. Some of the older trees were already here, but he cleared the ground and built the pools and played out there all hours of the day like a child. His singing used to drive her husband crazy, so she had to forbid it. Her father gave him to her as a wedding gift. She had known him since she was a child, him and another older slave called Shebe, who died several years ago. May God have mercy on him. At her marriage to the Sayyid more than 10 years ago, she offered Mzee Hamdani his freedom as a gift. Although the law at that time forbade buying and selling of people, it did not require that those held as slaves should be released from their obligations. But when she offered Mzee Hamdani his freedom, he refused. And there he is, still in the garden, singing his qasidas, the poor old man. She says, "Do you know why he was called Hamdani?" Amina said, her eyes dull with distance. Because his mother, who was a slave woman, had him late in her life. She called him Hamdani in gratitude for his birth. When the mother died, her father bought Hamdani from the family which owned him. It was a poor family, deep in debt. In the silence, the mistress stared at Yusuf for a long moment, smiling cheerfully. The smile remained on her face as she continued, but this time she did not speak for long. I'm going to jump a couple of paragraphs. The next day, he sought out Mzee Hamdani as he sat in the shade of the date palm with his book of qasidas. The old man was irritated and looked around him as if selecting another tree to move to under which he could sit in peace. "Please don't go away," Yusuf said. And something intimate in his voice made the old man hesitate. The Hamdani waited a moment and then allowed the taut muscles of his face to slacken. He nodded impatiently, reluctant as always to suffer anyone's words. "Get on with it." "Why did you refuse your freedom?" "When she offered it to you, the mistress," Yusuf asked, frowning at the old man as he leaned forward, annoyed with him. The old man waited a long time, looking at the ground. He smiled, his few teeth long and yellow with age. "This is how life found me," he said. Yusuf refused to be palmed off with what he thought was an evasion, and he shook his head urgently at the old gardener. "But you were her slave." "Ah, her slave. Is that how you want to be? Why did you not accept your freedom when she offered it?" Mzee Hamdani sighed. "Don't you know anything?" he asked sharply, and then paused as if he would say no more. After a while, he began again. "They offered me freedom as a gift. She did. Who told her she had it to offer? I know the freedom you're talking about. I had the freedom the moment I was born. When these people say, 'You belong to me,' I own you. It's like the passing of the rain or the setting of the sun at the end of the day. The following morning, the sun will rise, whether they like it or not. The same with freedom. They can lock you up, put you in chains, abuse all your small longings. But freedom is not something they can take away." When they have finished with you, they are still as far away from owning you as they were on the day you were born. Do you understand me? This is the work I've been given to do. What can that one in there offer me that is freer than that? Yusuf thought it was the talk of an old man. No doubt there was wisdom in it, but it was a wisdom of endurance and impotence. Admirable in its way, perhaps, but not while the bullies are sitting on him and releasing their foul gases in him. He kept silent, but he saw that he had saddened the old man, who had never spoken so many words to him before. and now probably wished he had not. Where are you from? Yusuf asked the old man, to flatter and placate him, and because he wanted to ask him about his mother. He wanted to tell Mzee Hamdani about what had happened to him, about how he too had lost his mother. Mzee Hamdani picked up his book of Qasidas without replying. And after a moment, he waved Yusuf away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my very, very beloved and dear friends. I mostly have been in tears throughout this reading. And I invite us, because we have some minutes to, I invite us to reflect with one another on what we have shared, and perhaps knowing that our audience includes some people in Gaza who are able to join with their very, very fragile connection. If you would like to share any thoughts, especially Rustum at 4 a.m. and John at 1:30 a.m. If you have any thoughts, you are most welcome.
They're all muted.
Mm.
Sorry, Gabeba, you're asking whether we have any thoughts to share.
Yes, I know.
Is that what you...
I am indeed asking that. Anything you have in reflection, perhaps of what you have yourself read or have heard from the others, or anything else you might want to say on this occasion in solidarity.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's an impossible situation. One doesn't know what to say. And so, yeah, I mean, especially, you know, yeah, I can't say anything. I can't. It's gone so far beyond comprehension, and yeah, that one, yeah, one doesn't know what to say.
Thank you. I understand. Any of the others would like to say anything?
Gabeba, you say that we have some sort of audience in Gaza. At least let them know that there are people all around the world, South African all around the world, who are daily with them. That's all.
Thank you, John. I will write that. Bongani, please go ahead. Yeah, Zubeida.
Yeah, I think I agree with Rustum. You know, this is the challenge of this moment, that it's almost, you know, before we always thought in, you know, it's like this or it's like that. But this is beyond being able to think about what this is. And so I guess we have to try and be as quiet as possible and be as thoughtful as possible about what we can do, and we not stop doing or speaking, and so that at least the people in Palestine, if you are hearing us, know that our hearts are with you. And even though we are baffled, even though we are not sure what is really going to shift and change the balance of forces, that is the amazing thing about this moment, that we've never been faced with such great uncertainty. I mean, during apartheid, yes, we didn't know from one minute to the next what's going to happen, but we had a framework within which to understand what was happening. We understood, the system of racial superiority, and we understood that we needed to fight it, and we understood that we were aiming for something else. But we saw it then as the fight between the East and the West, and it was either you were supportive of the non-aligned movement and the socialist communist states, or you were on the side of the West, whoever. But now there's no explanation. There's no coherent explanation other than greed and evil. And perhaps that is what we have to see now, that that there is evil, such a notion. I mean, not that we didn't think there's evil, but somehow now you have to start thinking, what is evil? What constitutes evil, I mean, to this extent? So again, like John, I would just say to all of you at the receiving end of this, our hearts are with you, and we feel the pain, we feel the inordinate pain, and it's hard to even know how you bear this. But just know that we love you and we are close to you, and we are doing whatever we think in our small way what we can do. And sometimes those small little things that we do, things that we think are small little things, add up and eventually snowball into that moment that can put a stop to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Zubeida. Mishka.
Yeah, I think for me, firstly, I want to say to our friends and compatriots in Gaza, thank you for listening to us today, even though you are in the most impossible circumstances. And just know that you have taught us what it means to be free inwardly, and you have taught us what it means to be brave, to have courage. And none of us here wishes that you had to teach us this lesson. But what I think I can say for all of us is that we will not stop fighting until Palestine is free. We will not stop fighting until you never have to suffer this ever again. Even in our small ways, even in small and big ways, we will work towards it with you. You will lead the way, and we are here to follow and to support you. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel there's such a power in what everybody has shared, and I truly thank you. And I wonder if I can invite the president of PEN South Africa to say a few words about this series, and then allow us all to take this great gift of your presence from across this almost span of the globe, as an act of great love and closeness to people whom we have been encouraged to think of as not existing. Profound thanks. Over to Bagani.
Thank you so much, Gabeba, and thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to all the readers. Thank you to everyone who's in the audience. Like you, Gabeba, I don't have enough words. The one thing that I will say is that the intention of this series really is to realize that we can't do everything, but we can light a candle in a dark world. And gatherings like this it's just an act of lighting a candle in the darkness. It's an act of solidarity. And I think, and it may not be everything, but it's not nothing. And so thank you so much to everyone. I don't know if that's enough, but thank you so much to everyone. And just to say also that our next Tuesday event is next Tuesday, is a conversation between C.A. Davids, the novelist C.A. Davids, in conversation with Nathi Ngubane about his educational coloring book, From the River to the Sea, and Malcolm X in Gaza. Please do come and join us. It's from 5 to 6. But thank you so much for joining us. At least we can hold hands together digitally. So thank you so much. And over to you, Gabeba, to say the final words.
Thank you. I see with unbelievable gratitude that Mahmoud Al-Sher is actually with us in the chat. And I wanted to quote him when he said that this shows that solidarity is stronger than violence. This is one of the many missives that he has written. And Mahmoud, we're so grateful to have you here and to know indeed that these words have reached you, and to know that we are always with you. And so thank you. And to the people of Gaza, we are sending you our neighborliness and our love, and we will continue to work forward and toward peace that you deserve, towards the ordinariness that you deserve. As Misha pointed out, and as Mahmoud himself has written, nobody wants to be a hero. Nobody wants to be a headline. And ordinariness would be the greatest thing to grant to the people of Gaza and to the people of Palestine. Thank you so much, everybody. And just with great gratitude and love to you all. Thank you. And a very good night to those who deserve their sleep now.
Right. Thank you for
Gaza.
organizing.